Hi, it's the Lipstick Gal. Thank you so much for watching today. I wanted to do a video talking about the tweaks and changes I've made to my makeup application now that I'm over 40. If you didn't know, I'm 47 years old and I love wearing makeup. And when I first started at 14, I never thought that I was going to have to change the way I put on makeup. This is the Beauty Pie Super Luminous Under Eye Genius. I never thought that I would have to tweak and adjust stuff because, you know, at 14 you think you're going to be young forever. The first thing that I have changed is I rely a little bit more on a corrector like this to really blank out the darkness under my eyes. I find that if I put on too much concealer in place of using a corrector, oh my goodness, I end up with a really heavy, cakey under eye that can tend to settle into those fine lines and crinkles underneath my eyes, and that's not what I'm going for. So I feel like using a brightening corrector, the thinnest little layer of it makes a huge difference. And if you notice, I don't take it all the way out to here. I just keep it right here. I do then take a little bit of this in other places. If I have any darkness, I have a little hyperpigmentation spot there and there. And I kind of will go around and I guess in a way pinpoint where I'm not adding a ton of coverage all over my face. I'm just trying to get a quick layer down to dial down some of that darkness or excess pigment. Another change that I have made is that I'm always looking for a foundation that has a hint of radiance to it. And if there's a formula that I like that is matte and I want it to be just a little bit glowy, I will add something to it. Just a drop of liquid highlight or something to make it just a little bit glowier. One of my recent faves is Charlotte Tilbury's Beautiful Skin Foundation. I also really love the Shiseido Synchro Skin Radiant Lifting Foundation. This is another beautiful product. I have the lightest shade in both of these, but I think it's funny if you look at it. This is the lightest shade, as is this in the line. There's a spectrum. One of the things that I've noticed is I cannot over apply base products. Nothing settles into my expression lines, especially my forehead, my nasal labial folds, corners of my mouth faster than too much product. So I dot just a little bit around on my face. That's not even like half the pump. And then I just start blending. And I'm grateful that my skin's in a good place today and I don't feel like I need a lot of product. But there are some days where I feel like I definitely need a little bit more coverage. And then I have to be cognizant of the fact that if I layer on too much, it ends up looking good for the first few hours and then it starts to settle or shift across my face. One of the things that had never really occurred to me when I first started noticing changes in my face and needed to tweak and apply makeup differently was that my skincare often had an effect on how my makeup sat on top of it. And for years, I would do like a really heavy, like 10-step routine, 7-step routine in the morning with layer after layer after layer of hydrating product, which is great on my skin. But then trying to make makeup sit on that and not slip and slide was hard. So now I get out of the shower and I'll spray on a hydrating toner. And then I will go for an under eye serum. Something that's not too hydrating, but that will give me just a little bit of, you know, happiness under the eye. And then after that, if it's wintertime, I'll put on a serum and then my SPF. In the summertime, sometimes I skip the serum and I go straight for the SPF. Since I have combo skin in the summertime, too many layers just means everything just slides around. And that's not what I'm going for. At this point, I feel like I've got a pretty good base, but I don't have any concealer on yet. And this is where I will put a very small amount of a heavy duty concealer. This is a full coverage concealer under the eyes. I'm going to use a very small amount. I find that when I over apply concealer, that's when everything just starts falling apart quickly. So I start by tapping it out to make sure I'm distributing it where I want it. And then I finish blending, you know, with a sponge or a brush. Today it's going to be a brush. But I find that if I start spreading it out with this, I don't get as smooth an application as I would want. When I first started watching YouTube, I don't know, 2007, 2008, there weren't a ton of beauty YouTubers. And then I think in the early 2010s is when everybody started putting giant triangles of Shape Tape and other things underneath their eyes. And there are still a lot of, you know, makeup trends out there where people will use like the instant age rewind and like sculpt their whole face with it. That's a little much for me at my age, because I definitely find the more product I put on my face, the more likely it is, especially in the warmer months, to start kind of coalescing, you know, in these lines underneath my eyes, corners of my nose, nasolabial folds, and that's not what I'm looking for. I feel like my under eyes are in a pretty happy place, and there are a few more spots that I want to make sure I get a little bit more coverage on. So instead of adding another layer of foundation everywhere, I'm going to do something I learned from Lisa Eldridge, which is pinpoint concealing. So I've got a little teeny tiny brush here, and I have the leftover pump of foundation here, and here a little teeny tiny blob of corrector. So I've dipped this brush into concealer, and I am just going to hit the spots where I have just a little bit of discoloration, and then I'm going to tap over it. So I'm not adding like a full layer of foundation everywhere. I'm just kind of hitting those spots that need just a bit more. And I find that when I do this, I can get the coverage I want without laying it on too thick. And I don't think this is something that, you know, only works for people over a certain age. I think this works for anybody. If you like that almost not wearing much makeup look, pinpoint concealing can be super, super helpful. Just want to show you, I'm talking light layers. I still have almost an entire pump of foundation here, and I use the smallest amount of concealer off the end of the doe foot, so you don't really need a lot of product. I need to set my face. I'm looking for something that is going to be almost undetectable. I find that when I'm using a really heavy powder, it just ages me big time. And I think a lot of it has to do with the formulation of the powder, and sometimes it has to do with, you know, how I'm applying it. One of my all-time favorite powders is the one from Glossier, their Wowder. I'm also using a larger eyeshadow brush dipped in powder to set my under eye. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that there is nothing settling into my under eye crinkles, because if you have product there and then you set it with powder, you're going to set those creases in all day. So I tap them out, and then instead of just going one way, I find that that might actually just lay powder down this way. I go back and forth to make sure that if my skin is pulling one way, that it's getting into all those little teeny tiny wrinkles going the other. I don't use a lot of powder. I tap off all the excess. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll bounce the end of it on the tabletop or on the back of my hand to let the powder sink into the bristles a little bit so it's not all on the end. I'm going to tap out my under eye. This will make sure that if anything has settled into those creases, it's not going to stay that way all day. And then I'll set this. I do like using a smaller brush like this. For years, I used to use a large brush like this to set my face. I find that I have better success when I use something small like this, because then it helps me really place the powder just where I need it. The older I get, if I use a large brush like this, I'm gonna get powder where I don't want it. And I don't powder my entire face unless I'm going to work. On a work day, I powder my whole face because I have to wear a mask, and if I'm wearing cream products and I don't have them set, they're just gonna rub off on the inside of my mask. So I'm going to continue. You see how I also have some concealer up here on my eyelids? I didn't mean for that to happen, but I guess it did. I'm going to make sure not to put powder over my eyelids until I have everything kind of tapped out, and then I can set my lids as well. I also need to set a few other places in my face. I always set my under eyes first because that's where I have the most creasing. The next most likely place for product to kind of bunch up and catch is right here in these expression lines. So I'll just take whatever utensil, it could be a sponge, it could be a brush that I use to blend my foundation with, and I go over it to make sure I don't have anything set in there, and then I just drag a little bit of the powder that I'm using right over those largest expression lines. I also need to set my nose. As a combo girl, I am always a little bit glowy, especially in warmer months, on my nose and kind of corners of my nose, so I will set here, and then I'll put a little bit on my chin. I also hit the corners of my mouth because I can have foundation and product settling in those areas. So I'm going basically full T-zone and under the eyes and nowhere else. Other powders that I love other than the Glossier, if you're not a Glossier fan or you're not willing to make a purchase from them, something that might be easier to find in an actual brick and mortar store would be this. This is the Air Set Radiant Loose Powder from Estee. This is a newer product. I fell in love with this. This feels almost as lightweight and undetectable as the one from Glossier. Glossier doesn't have any sort of radiance to it, and this does. I also like that it has a sifter cover. The one from Glossier has one of those little bouncy mesh nets. Not my fave, but it works. If you're looking for a pressed powder, my all-time favorite pressed powder that works beautifully under my eyes, all over the face, is the Ambient Lighting Powder from Hourglass. I have the shade Diffused Light. It's more of a slightly yellow tone. Ooh, I'm getting close to the pan, I can tell. It looks heavy, but when you really blend it in, you really can't see, and it has a tiny little bit of a glow. This is great if you're looking for a little bit of light reflection under the eyes. It's not really highlighty. It just makes your skin look perfected. This is a favorite. Another pressed powder that I love, it's specifically made for under the eyes. It's from Pat McGrath. Mine, I mean, I've hit the pan. This is, I forget the name of it. So the printing has worn off on the sticker on the back, so I really couldn't tell you by looking at it what it is, but I'll tell you it's amazing. I think this is from the Sublime Skin collection. This is the lightest shade of the under eye setting powder. You can use it all over the face, but it is absolutely gorgeous under the eyes. Obviously it's a favorite. I've hit the little terracotta tile here at the bottom. This one's a little bit softer. Even though it is a baked product, it's a little bit softer, and I get a lot more when I use a natural hair brush. A lot of it picks up. A great alternative to that is a lot less expensive, because that little tiny guy is $30. But if you want something that works almost exactly the same and is nowhere near that price, get you one of these. This is the One Powder Wonder, an Uberlescent Universal from Beauty Pie. The one thing that worries me is sometimes I'm like, please don't ever discontinue this, but when this product is not in the warehouse, they don't have it listed on their website. So you may go looking for it going, I can't find it, they're not selling it. Sometimes if it's not in stock, they'll list like not in stock, and sometimes they just yank it from the website. So I never know whether they're gonna continue making this, but I wouldn't see why they wouldn't. It's a beautiful product. This is another one of those that you can see there's a little bit of a glow, but there really isn't like a huge white cast. Now remember, I wear the lightest shade of this foundation and this foundation. I wear the lightest shade in the concealer that I have from Estee Lauder. I am really fair, so maybe it's just that on my fair skin, I can't tell that this has a white cast, but this is a beautiful powder. These are the powders that I trust under my eyes. I've got drawers full of other powders that I think are really nice and work well, but they sometimes can age my under eyes. These guys never do, and they look beautiful under the eyes. I also like that I can use them everywhere else. But if you want to invest in a powder specifically for under the eye and then use something everywhere else because you like the way that it sets your makeup or you like the way that it looks on your skin, find what works for your under eye. I find that the minute I'm wearing the wrong powder under my eyes, it can age me up to a decade. I can look more tired, I can look a little bit older, a little bit drier under here. I have to have the right powders for my skin type and for what my needs are, and that might be different for you. Another change that I've made is I've switched to more cream products. Now, on days that I go to work, I work in a dentist office, I have to wear a mask every time I'm in with a patient, so I wear powder products on days like that. But I find that on days that I'm not working, my preference really has been, and my skin looks the most luminous and the most beautiful and the most youthful when I'm using cream products, cream or liquids. And I have switched from using a ton of powder products to not setting this portion of my face and using cream products. I'm going to start with the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Sun-Kissed Glow Bronzer. This is the lightest shade in Fair. I really have been enjoying this. I like how big the mirror is. That is nice too. But what I end up doing is using a synthetic brush like this, just stamping it in here, and then just putting this where I want it and blending up. I'm using it like a little bit of a contour, but mostly just bronzer. I don't want to take it too low, but I'll kind of drape it a little bit high. This is a newer product to my collection. It's one that I ordered right when it was available, but it sat on my desk for almost 2 weeks. I'd been really busy and I didn't want to, start trying it without doing a first impression. So I was like, you know what, just start using it and we can talk about it later. But I've been using it for about a week now. I really like it. I think it looks really pretty. And I like how easy it is, you know, to dab on and to blend out. Super, super easy. I don't know about you, the older I get, the more of this I have going on. So I always add a little shading here too. If you have a nice strong jawline without any of this, I'm jealous. But if you also struggle, I find that using something that's not too dark, and I don't take it down too far, but I kind of just sculpt this area here a little bit. I find that if it's too dark, it's too obvious. It works looking straight on, but from the side can look a little strange. So I try and make sure I'm using a color that's fairly close. More cream products. I just love the way these look on the skin. This is the one from Rose Inc, and I like to just lightly tap in, pick a little bit up on my brush. Because it's a little bit more pigmented, I'll bounce it off on the back of my hand. You know, so I have it distributed through the bristles, but it's not too heavy, and then I can just bounce it where I want it. You could do this with your fingers. You could use a sponge. I like these more dense synthetic brushes, and then whatever extra I have on the back of my hand, I'll pick back up on the brush and hit the other side. My goal is to not get too blushy, because I tend to over blush, and I don't want to end up in clown territory, but I definitely want that pretty rosy glow. If I ever feel like I get the blush too high, I just go stamp right over the edge and blend it with whatever is left over on my foundation brush or my sponge if I'm using a sponge that day. I find it does, you know, if I get it a little too close to my nose, I just kind of dial it down just a little bit. It helps to blend things in. I love creams. They're super easy, and this is the sort of thing that I can just pick up with my finger and tap where I want it. I think maybe I have really noticed the older I get, the drier my skin tends to feel. I feel like I still have more oils in my T-zones than I would wish to have, but even this is not as greasy as it used to be in the summertime. So I feel like wearing cream products, especially ones that are on the hydrating side, can really make my skin look plumper. Another one of the things that I have done for myself is I've gotten rid of every single eyeshadow formula in my collection that makes my eyes look crepey. The older I get, the more texture I have on my lids. And some formulas don't accentuate that texture, and other ones, it's like they magnify it. So I've actually gone through my collection, and even though a formula may be good, even though it may actually be super pigmented, easy to blend, but if it makes my eyelids look older, out the door. And I really love formulations that are beautiful and easy to apply. I have heard forever, like after 40 or after 45, don't wear any sparkle. I don't believe that. I feel like we should be able to wear whatever we want, but it just really comes down to finding the formulas that make you feel your most confident. So I'm going to be using this today. This is the Viseart Cashmerie palette. I like this because it has a nice mix of like nudes on one side and more kind of berry tones on the other, but I don't really ever skimp on the shimmer. I just find formulas that work well for my eyelids. If you're curious as to what some of my favorite formulas are, I found that Viseart works well for me. I like Wayne Goss's formula. I feel like Charlotte Tilbury has a nice formula that doesn't accentuate while still having some of that really beautiful shimmer. It's an elegant, less glittery shimmer, but I don't feel like it adds any extra texture to my eyelids. I love Sydney Grace eyeshadows. I think those are amazing. And some of my favorite sparkly eyeshadows are singles. I love the ones from Lisa Eldridge, the Liquid Lurex. I love the ones from M, the Cosmic Dewy Crystal. What are they called? These guys. These are the Cosmic Pearl Dewy eyeshadows. These are so beautiful, and they give a beautiful shine to the eye, but they don't add any texture to my lids. That's what I want, because I'm sure there's glitter running through my veins. I love something sparkly. I love something that catches, you know, the light and flickers and glitters. I love all of that, but I don't want it to make me look older. So those are the formulas that I love. I also really like these ones from M. These are the Divine Skies. I have 3 of these. They're absolutely stunning. So for me, it's just making sure that if I'm putting a product on my eye, it makes my eye look as smooth as possible. It's not going to smooth it out, but it's not going to accentuate the texture that I already know I've got going on there. I can't keep looking at these eyebrows. I got to do something to them. And the one thing that I've figured out over the years is that I have in the past overgroomed my brows, like plucked out too many things. and I didn't leave in enough. So the first thing I started doing a couple years ago, I started using an actual eyelash serum, but on my eyebrows. And I definitely have more hair this way than I used to have. And that's just from using that serum. The other thing I have learned is that if I paint my eyebrows in too dark, then it ages me. So I need just enough, not too much. If I'm looking at my 12 and 14-year-old daughter's eyebrows, which to me are like the eyebrows of my dreams, they're not overly groomed. They're real kind of light, wispy, and fluffy. And they're dark, but they're not too dark. And I feel like that's exactly what I'm going for. So I'm always walking that line of just enough, not too much. And some people have a preference for a certain type of product. You know, some people like a brow gel, some people like a brow pencil. I tend to really like these little teeny tiny brow markers that can let me draw in like little hair-like strokes where there are no hairs. And I feel like that really does help make my eyebrows look a little bit more than what they started out as. One of the things that I stopped doing when I hit my early 40s, I think I was 40, 41, is I quit wearing eyeliner. And for me, the reason I quit wearing eyeliner is all of a sudden I hit 40 and my eyes started to water. And I was watering out of both corners, but my left eye is perpetually leaking. And I am already missing a little bit of concealer here because I've been wiping my eye, but I don't know, it's gonna keep doing what it's gonna do. But I realized that when I stopped wearing eyeliner, I was losing that definition of my eye. I like the look myself of wearing an eyeliner, so that's what I always tend to do. One of my favorites is this one from Inglot. This is their AMC liner. I have the shade number 90. It's a deep dark brown, and I take the smallest little teeny tiny brush. This is the Delium Tools 762 small angle brush. And then I just start applying this, and it helps when I get the mirror as close to my eye, because the older I get, the more my eyes are like failing. It'd be easier if I was wearing glasses, but then I wouldn't be able to put my eye makeup on. So I get this as close as I can to my lash line, but it really does help to define my eye just that much more. If I'm going for a bold look, I'll do a winged liner. I think today I'm just going to keep it kind of close to the lash line. Another thing I like to do is to use this tiny brush, and instead of filling in my entire upper waterline, what I'll do is I'll take this and shove it right in between my lashes at the base where they grow out. So I'm hitting the top side, and then I'm just kind of pushing and wiggling this in to make sure I don't have any of those visible gaps between my lashes. I find that when I can see those flush toned gaps, my lashes look a little bit weird. For me, the difference from this to this, even though I'm not wearing like a huge winged liner, it just gives my eye just a hair more definition. And it can be a little bit more time consuming. If you don't want to use a gel liner, you know, go for a fine brush tipped liner. If you don't want to use a liquid liner because it's just a little intimidating, grab your pencil, get a little itty bitty brush, and then just run it over this. And you can do the same thing where you take the time to just carefully line. If you're worried you're not going to be able to get the precision from the pencil because the pencil will dull, I just take the time to do this and I get the same sort of results. And then I'll just do the same thing on the underside, kind of pushing it between the lashes to intensify the lash line and to blank out any of those gaps in between the lash hairs. And I find it gives me a very similar look. So you don't have to go out and get, you know, a new eyeliner. You can use what you have, but maybe use a tool along with it to give that really precise application. For years, I used to be able to just throw on any lip color and run out the door, and it wouldn't really matter. But the older I get, the more I'm noticing those fine lines around the edges of my lips, from pursing my lips, from drinking through a straw, just age in general. I'm also noticing that I am losing volume in my lips. That happens as we age, and that's totally fine. But I'm at the point where I want to cheat my lip line just a hair. And I find the easiest way to do that, to get that fuller look of the lips, is to use a lip liner every single day. Lip liner has become non-negotiable for me. The other thing I found is that if I use one that's very close to my natural lip color, maybe a My Lips But Better shade, it's easier to cheat the line even if I put a bolder shade over the top. So I'm going to grab a lip liner. I'm going to be using the Enhance and Define Lip Liner from Lisa Eldridge in the shade Muse. And so what I'm going to start doing is to just give myself just a quick line right on my actual lip border. And at this point I take a look. My lips are no longer even. Maybe they never were in the beginning, but when they were a little bit fuller, I didn't really worry about it. I always noticed that I have a little bit of a droop here, so I will just on the outside edge line just a little bit more in this area. And I'll take the Cupid's bow up just a hair. Not a lot, just a smidge. The other thing I like to do is I like to hit just kind of like this center section right here, just a hair lower than my natural lip line. So I kind of draw on the bottom edge of the line I drew the first time. Just kind of round it out just a hair more. I feel like that gives me that extra little bit of boost. Now I'll take the time to just add a little bit here, smush my lips together, kind of spread it out with my finger. And this is not going to go anywhere. I feel that doing this where I overline just a hair at the Cupid's bow, I make sure that I'm even where I want it, and just a little extra down here, not too much, just a little bit powdier, does give me that slightly fuller lip look. The next thing that's super important for me is to look for a hydrating lip formula. Even if you're wearing a matte lipstick, you can still find matte lipsticks that are nourishing on the lips, even though they have that appearance of being matte. Hydrating doesn't always mean glossy. There are a lot of matte lipsticks out there, liquid matte lipsticks and traditional bullet lipsticks that are very drying on my lips. And the older I get, the less flattering that looks. My lips used to be able to handle a lot more when I was younger. Not anymore. They're getting pretty fussy these days. So I'm looking for a comfortable formula that is nourishing. And I've tried a lot of glosses that I thought would be like glossy and hydrating. They're just glossy, but they're not hydrating. So make sure whatever formula, matte to gloss, is comfortable on your lips and continues to nourish throughout the day. Nothing makes my lips look older than being dry and crusty. One of my favorite matte formulas is from Lisa Eldridge. These are the Velvet lipsticks. This one is in Velvet Petal. It's a pretty pink shade, but it's absolutely glorious and comfortable on the lips. And I'm gonna throw just a quick swipe of another one of Lisa's lipsticks over the top. This is the Luxuriously Lucent lip formula. This one tends to be just a little glowier, a little glossier. Over the years, I've learned that nothing kills my look more and makes me look older than I am faster than over application. So instead of adding on like a ton of eyeshadow all at the same time, I'll build it up in layers. Same thing with foundation or concealer. Same thing with powder, whatever it is, even a lip product. Sometimes I feel like going full bore the first time, I can always add more. It just complicates things to try and have to take it away. It doesn't always work with makeup. So I would say that's the last thing I want to remind you of, is just a little bit at a time, light layers till you get your desired intensity or the look that you're going for. And maybe one last thing is, you know, all of those articles that you'll find out on the internet of over a certain age, you should never wear this color, you should never wear this finish, you forget all of that. Don't listen to them. I always tell myself, don't listen to the haters. I want to wear a shimmery eyeshadow. I want to wear a bold red lip. And I feel like we should be able to wear whatever we want because it's supposed to make us feel beautiful and confident. And if you feel beautiful and confident wearing lime green eyeliner, go for it. If you feel beautiful and confident in a black lipstick, whatever makes you happy. So don't read those articles or listen to a YouTuber who tells you you shouldn't do this or shouldn't wear that after a certain age. No, do whatever you want. It's just makeup. It washes off at the end of the day. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope this was helpful. And remember that it's going to be different for every person. These are the tweaks that I have made that work for me. And I feel like I'm going to have to continue adjusting and tweaking as I get older, and I'm ready and willing to do that. I would love to know if you have anything that you do differently from when you first started wearing makeup to now. Are there any techniques that you absolutely swear by, I would love to know. Let me know in the comment section down below. And if there is a certain formula or a certain brand that you know you can trust 100%, don't keep the secrets to yourself. Thanks so much for watching. Have an incredible day, and I'll see you again soon.